Wonderful. Thank you so much, Amelia. And at this time, I'd like to invite our second panel, which will be our student intern panel, to turn on your camera and unmute themselves and give them a moment to do that. Great. So welcome, interns. Can each of you please introduce yourself with your name, grade, and what school you attend? And Talia, if you don't mind, I'm going to start with you.
Hi, I'm Talia Jordan, and I'm a senior at Capitol High School.
Great. Thank you, Talia. How about Grant?
Hi, I'm Grant Alderman, and I am a senior at Capitol High School.
Awesome. Thanks, Grant. And Lila.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lila Coe, and I'm a senior at Herbert Hoover High School.
Great. Thank you all so much, and thanks for joining us. And Lila, I'm going to start this first question with you, if you don't mind. How did you hear about this work-based learning internship course opportunity? And I'm sure it's a little bit different than some of the other classes on your schedule. So why did you choose to sign up for it?
I learned about this opportunity through my career work skill training instructor, Michael Huffman, who's also on the call with us today. It is a little different than my normal schedule, but I chose to sign up for this internship to develop my work skills and build my resume for college. And it worked surprisingly well. I listed this internship on my application for the WVU's Foundation Scholarship and was awarded full ride. So.
Oh my gosh, congratulations. That's amazing. I'm so glad that it's paid off so quickly.
Yes, very much so.
Thanks, Lila. Grant, how about you, if you don't mind? How did you hear about this course opportunity and why did you choose to sign up?
Or how I found out about it was I found out it from my driver's ed teacher. He sent me a Schoology message, and so I read the message and like kind of read about it, and just decided, you know, it seems fun, and it seems like it gave me an opportunity to see like what kind of jobs and stuff is out there in West Virginia, and to see something in my career and like the future.
Awesome. Yeah, it was a wonderful opportunity to learn about various careers in West Virginia. So let's talk a little bit about the course as a whole. So each Monday, your class logged on for the virtual job shadow training module, and you got to see kind of behind the scenes at 13 different businesses, and they provided training on one West Virginia ready career skill. And I'm sure you're all aware we did record these modules so teachers can use them throughout the week. I would like to show our audience a little clip of the Toyota module that occurred on the very first week of our semester when business and interns were still getting to know each other a little bit. And the first half of the module, Toyota really showed us how they build their engines and transmissions, and really just all about auto manufacturing. But the clip we're going to see here shortly is the second half of the module, in which Mike Smith, the Toyota HR director, taught us about the West Virginia ready skill of teamwork, which Toyota refers to as Mendomi. So we're going to watch that clip, and I'm going to ask all of our interns to mute themselves while the video plays.
The question is, have you ever had a situation where you've completed a math problem, you got the right answer, but the teacher still marked it wrong and said, show your work? If you haven't had that, but why do you think the teacher marked it wrong and stated that?
I have had it happen.
So have I.
A lot of it is they want to know how you did it. Like in the workplace, you can't just come up with this because you need other people to be able to follow you and know what you did so they can do it too.
That is an excellent answer. Yeah, you may be able to get lucky and get that right answer, or you may have kind of peeked over, which is an absolute no-no on someone else's paper. But do you understand how you got that answer? Okay.
Yeah, and if you don't understand it, you can't help someone else understand how to do it either.
That's right. So let's just say, and what was your name again?
Peyton.
Peyton. Let's just say you got the right answer, and I said, hey, that's great. Can you tutor the rest of the students on how to get that right answer when you guessed or you're not sure how to do it? What would you think?
Well, I mean, I would have to be honest with it that I didn't know what I was doing. Because
Yes.
that just creates complete chaos when you wing it. Somebody else has to do what you just tried to do.
Exactly. So it's very important the key teaching point here is not only to focus on results, but the process you go through to get those and achieve those good results. And that hits right on the spot what you said, as far as being able to share that among different areas in the plants and also with other Toyota Motor companies, so we can share best practices.
All right, great. So we watched that little clip, and like I mentioned, that was Toyota. That was the very first week. But we did have 12 other businesses that participated with us and facilitated a training module each week. So can each of you tell us a short story about one of the skills, or excuse me, about one of the companies that was really memorable for you, and what really stood out to you about that module beyond just the Toyota training module? And Talia, if you don't mind, I'm going to start with you.
I'd say that the company that stood out to me the most was CAMC. I was unaware of what it takes to run a hospital without being like medical personnel. And so it was really refreshing to see something so accessible to me in town in the event that I'm looking for a job here.
Yeah, awesome. I loved how you mentioned that you learned a lot more about CAMC than just kind of the nurses and doctors, that you typically think of when you think of a hospital. What was one of the, careers in the hospital that stood out to you beyond just a nurse or a doctor?
Well, there was a lot of like technician work for like hospital equipment and things of that nature. So it's like, I wouldn't be a doctor or a nurse, still enthralled enough in the business and so that they would need me to keep the hospital. And I thought that was
absolutely. It's all different types of careers, and that's a wonderful career opportunity that is really needed in West Virginia. Lila, how about you? What was one of the modules and the skills that really stood out to you beyond Toyota's module? And I think you're muted, sweetie.
I forgot. I'm so sorry. I started
just going. Done it.
Okay, one training module that really stood out to me was the one presented by West Virginia's American Water. The presentation itself was very well designed and comprehensive, not only the part about the company itself, but also the section on the West Virginia Ready Skills, which dealt with different types of bias and mutual respect and micro behaviors. Yeah, awesome. And what was one thing that really stood out to you? I know every time they facilitate that presentation for me, I learned something new. So what was one of the biggest takeaways about the diversity and inclusion module they facilitated? One big thing I really appreciated is they made sure to define a lot of the topics they discussed and terms that we can use in our everyday life. Like they discussed the different types of bias, like implicit, unconscious, explicit, that kind of thing, which is not only applicable in a workplace setting, but it's also applicable to our daily life. So.
Awesome. Yeah, I loved what you said about it's applicable not only in the workplace setting, but also just in everyday life. And I think that really rang true for a lot of our skills that our business is facilitated, regardless of if you go into that career opportunity. Those skills will carry you throughout whatever career you decide. Grant, how about you? What was the module that stood out the most for you?
The module that stuck out for me was probably Yeager Airport, because it kind of like Talia said, I didn't really know like what like went into like running that type of business and like all the background stuff that goes into like running an airport and making sure everything's on time, because necessarily you might be on time, but like you have to deal with all the rest of the flights around the whole world that has to deal with that stuff too. So that would probably be it.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I really loved learning about how they have to keep up the ground. I didn't even take that into consideration, and that's another great career opportunity right here in Charleston. All right, great. Thank you all so much for sharing those. Let's transition to talk about the capstone projects. So each of your schools was matched with one business. We had Capital was matched with West Virginia American Water, and Herbert Hoover High School was matched with Appalachian Power. If you could just tell us about your capstone project and how you worked on it throughout the semester. And Talia, I'm going to start with you, if you don't mind, if you can share about your capstone project.
Yes, our capstone project went really well. Leading up to it, the preparation up until the presentation. I'll say my partner Hannah and I, we were completely in the dark on what to hook up, water to a city to make. We were partnered with West Virginia American Water, and thanks to Randy Blankenship, he was able to meet up with us on a few different occasions. Was able to just lay out the process in full detail. He broke down the costs for us, and after that, the project just came naturally, and it was just us setting up the information and the research that we found through Randy. But I mean, it was a really fun experience, the way that we went from knowing nothing about a process to knowing almost everything.
Yeah, awesome. I really love that. So you had to take a property that was not hooked up to city water and determine the cost and the design for hooking it up to West Virginia American Water's system. And I really loved y'all's project, and I loved how you told the story about why it was important to you to hook up water. So if you don't mind, one thing I wanted to mention is we did design this capstone project rubric around design thinking, which emphasizes telling a story and being really innovative in your design and your thinking. And Callie, if you don't mind, I just loved hearing when y'all presented, what was your storytelling around that project, and how did that kind of impact your thinking and other aspects of maybe school or career opportunities? Can you just speak to a little bit about that?
Well, the design of story, that was really just us playing around. Well, we knew about the cons to using well water, and then it just took us playing it up presentation and then organizing our ideas and stuff. With this not being my first big presentation, we were kind of prepared already, but I mean, the overall prep and the overall style of presentation, the way that it was very reminiscent of Shark Tank almost, I think that is something that we can keep in our back pocket for future projects, just because you guys seemed so receptive to it, and it seemed went really well. So that's just something that we will always keep in mind, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I love how you compared it to Shark Tank. That's how we always think of it too. And I think regardless of whatever you're doing, it's really good to learn how to explain your purpose behind something and the why behind it. And that really helps people really understand the concept. Thank you so much. And Lila, if you don't mind, I'm going to ask you about your project with Appalachian Power. So you all had to bring power to a new residential building that was not hooked up to electricity yet. So can you talk a little bit about your capstone project? What were some of the challenges, and what was something that you learned along the way that surprised you?
Okay, so like you said, our capstone project was to provide service to a rural farm in Cabell County. And kind of as Talia mentioned, we started completely in the dark with a lot of these design considerations and everything electrical. I don't think anyone in our internship had any experience whatsoever with electrical things. So we met with representatives with AP weekly to learn about the service location and the calculations necessary to develop our final project. Additionally, we had a weekly culture and safety contact with a culture playbook from AP I have right here. And we learned more about the culture of the company, enhanced our safety awareness in outside the company. But with design considerations and things I learned along the way, as we were developing our project, it's kind of hard to tell from just the map they gave us, but we were provided with a video of the road along to the service. And we noticed a flower garden that in our original calculations, we had drawn a pole over, and we adjusted our final design in order to avoid that flower garden and make it to where it doesn't interfere with anyone's living space.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I'm sure Amanda and Mike would be so thrilled to hear not only that you still have the safety training booklet with you, but also just, how you learned how to design around the flower garden so you don't interfere with anyone's living space. I think that's super important for their business as a whole. Yeah, it was wonderful. I loved hearing about your project during the presentation. And just wanted to ask Grant really quickly, you were also matched with West Virginia American Water, although you were in a different group than Talia. What did you learn most from the capstone project? What was your biggest takeaway?
What I learned most was like what goes into like doing that type of job, like giving an estimate to somebody, and because I had no idea what really went into giving someone an estimate for turning to well water into like city water basically. And it was really interesting to see like what goes into it and how much it actually costs, because I didn't know like like people had to pay, like we had to pay for that, you know. I thought it just came, you know, like everybody else did. I had no idea.
Yeah, definitely. And you and Talia, your groups had very different, just plots of land, and it was really interesting, the differences in price and just the reasonings behind that for both of your projects. And it was interesting to see how you both went about it. All right, great. So transitioning just a little bit, how does this experience influence the way you are thinking about your future career pathway? And Grant, if you don't mind, I'm going to go ahead and start with you on this one.
I think that it shaped my future career pathway to like give me an idea of what kind of jobs are out there and what to expect from an employer, and to see what is available for me. Look at all the options first before making a decision to choose a career path because I want to be happy with what I do.
Yeah, that's a great point. Choosing a career path that'll make you happy and looking at all your options. And it's really nice to do that before you get to college or wherever. Lila, what about you? How did this experience influence your future career pathway choices?
Well, first of all, it made me aware of a lot of different local career opportunities that I consider going forward, because when I first started this project, I was pretty undecided about what I wanted to do with my life after college. And I've chosen to work in the medical field, and the CAMC training module is very informative about my chosen field and local job opportunities to consider once I graduate college or medical school.
Awesome. That's so great to hear that you learned about local opportunities that'll bring you back to West Virginia, or at least back to Charleston maybe. We're always really happy to hear that. And Talia, what about you?
There we go. This experience has definitely changed my personal outlook on future career options. I'm currently pursuing a career in the performing arts, and I've been working towards this, and only this since I was a really little kid, and I've never really seen myself do anything else. But during this experience, seeing everything that's available to me in town, like in my hometown, was a super important experience, just for the sake of growing up. And now I can leave this experience with a list of businesses to keep in my back pocket in the event that I need something else to pursue. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's a great point. And not only do you have different businesses in your back pocket, but you also have connections now with local businesses thanks to this. So that's wonderful to hear. And our final question before I get into some audience questions is, what advice would you give to any student that is considering signing up for this program? Lila, what about you? What advice would you give to a student considering this program?
Well, first of all, I'd highly recommend it for anyone considering this program. I think any student has the capacity to be successful in this program if they're curious about different career pathways, they're willing to learn, and they're not afraid to ask questions during the weekly meetings.
Yeah, awesome. And I loved how you used that willing to learn. That was one of our West Virginia Ready skills. And I love, asking questions. That's the best way to learn, is to ask a bunch of questions. Talia, what about you? What advice would you give?
I'd say to definitely be aware of one's personal time management, just because as the project was unfolding for me and my partner, had a lot of final tasks for graduation and our activities. So our overall workload got a little overwhelming, but I'd say just remember how important it is to stay on top of all of your work, things like that.
Yeah. Absolutely, yeah. Learning how to juggle multiple responsibilities and time management, definitely really important, especially as you continue to grow in your career. Awesome, thanks, Talia. And Grant, how about you? What advice would you give to a student thinking about signing up for this program?
Some advice I'd give to them is just to stick with it and to like just like it's a really beneficial program like for your life and like everything like that, because you get to see all the things to deal with like career stuff, and like because it's basically like the rest of your life, and you kind of want to know what you have to like expect to deal with, you know what I mean? Like, so that's about it.
Yeah, definitely. It gives you some things to think about and know what to expect as you move forward. So we do have a couple audience questions for you. And Grant, if you don't mind, I'm going to start with you. What kind of information did your mentors discuss with you? Was it only capstone related, or did you get into any other, kind of deeper dive into American Water, or what all did they discuss with you?
They discussed like they it was mostly some of the like the capstone project, but they just gave us like I feel like some of the advice that they gave us, some of the advice that we got was more of like, I'm just trying to think. It wasn't necessarily our mentor. It was like other like companies and stuff. Like it was just all around like it was all advice because it gave us a bigger understanding of what was going on. It wasn't necessarily directly something that they told us, you know?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. It sounds like they really did a good job of making it a well-rounded experience, and it sounds like you got a really good, well-rounded knowledge, kind of base about American Water as a whole, as their company. Great. Lila, what about you? What was some of the things that your mentors discussed in your weekly calls?
I guess my experience is a little different than Grant's. Our weekly calls at first weren't even really discussing the capstone project as much as just teaching us more about the company and the employees there, and then different terminology that would be useful later on. Like we had an electrical scavenger hunt one week as an assignment, where we had to go around to our neighborhood and find electrical equipment and take a picture of it and label it and send it, obviously from a safe distance. But this stuff like that built upon our knowledge before we ever discussed our capstone project.
Oh, wow, that's incredible. So it sounds like you'll never look at some of this equipment around town the same. You'll always remember that. That's awesome. So you really got a full experience when it comes to Appalachian Power. And our next question is, were any of you inspired to apply for a job in one of the career fields that either you did your capstone project in, or maybe just one of the modules that you learned about with some of the different jobs? Were any of you inspired to apply for some of these jobs? Talia?
Not immediately, just because I have a good foundation for what I want to do, but like after I graduate from college and I am back home, aside from CAMC, I would say Truist Bank is something that I was very interested in looking into in the future.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, Truist, or BB&T, now Truist, and they had a wonderful financial wellness module for us that was really helpful, I think, not only for students, but for me. Lila, what about you? Were you inspired to apply for any specific job based on these modules?
Not specific jobs, but actually I have an interview for an internship through WVU tomorrow. It's called First to Network, and it deals with biology and chemistry and the natural sciences in the STEM field. And I was part inspired by that from the Dow chemical training module we had.
That's awesome. And do you feel like you're better prepared now for a college internship potentially because of this experience?
Absolutely. I think this experience is instrumental in preparing me for college and internships I might have in the future.
Awesome. Wonderful. Well, thank you all so much for your time today. We really appreciate your insight, and I just really appreciate you piloting this program with us in your respective schools. I had a great time, and it was such a pleasure to meet you all this semester. So thank you so much, and good luck in the next step of your careers.